Okay. Hello, everyone. Um, excuse me. Just want to put a notice out that I cannot really see very well. So, and the whole thing is coming back into my eyes. So I'm gonna wear my shade. So don't freak out or please don't judge me like I'm trying to be cool. It's just a way of dimming the light coming from the screen, going into my eyes. Yeah. All right. I would like to rant about the oncoming UK election. You know, and how it affects non-EU international students. Um, I would, I will start by saying that the pedigree of my ignorance before coming to the UK as a Negroid or black person was so profound that I never thought about racism in that way. Not that I don't know there's racism, but I thought it was just or we Africans who live in continental Africa is more like it's just a bunch of unfortunate Africans that was uprooted from their from their culture and exported to Europe. But we are fortunate we are colonized because we didn't go through what they went through. You know, that is the way we've been taught at school, and that is the way we've been taught to cherish the British culture. Like, in fact, we have to scrabble. You know, if you imagine a game of Scrabble, we have to scrabble our way out of poverty by learning loads of English dictionary words. So people like me, I read dictionary, like literally like book. The amount of the amount of word I read, I know and understand, and I can define, and I can know the synonym, and then know the antonym, and combine it together, know the past tense, and the nouns and verbs and adjectives and everything that goes with it. The more I'm more respected as educated, you know, and so that's what I mean by we have to scrabble our way out of poverty. And so to say, the reality of that was that we've been made to believe that it's only when you acquire education, only you acquire what you see now as Western form of education. It's kind of ironic now looking back at Boko Haram. Yeah, Boko Haram exploit that by saying the Western education is forbidden and use that to say that look at how long you've been trying to acquire knowledge and you've acquired knowledge and how it doesn't provide or give you any kind of benefit. So for people like me, we have always been seen as been told that the greatest achievement we could have is to have a British form of qualification, whether it is a degree, diploma, you name it, all sort of qualification, even if it's just a professional conference you attend and then the kind of certificate they give you. In fact, there is a case in the media about a Nigerian senator that claimed that he had acquired is a Cambridge or Oxford degree. Meanwhile, he only went there to to attend the conference or a seminar, and I gave him a certificate for attending the seminar. So he upgraded himself to someone who have acquired British qualification. Anyway, the point I'm trying to say here is that it dawned on me after I arrived in the UK that no matter what, my life is viewed from the point of view of viability, economic viability, if I'm gonna be adding to the system or making the system. So there is no any form of humanity or the worth of me basically is not worth at all unless I have economic viability to the system, right? And if you compare that to the West, or white person that go to where somewhere in Africa or or South Asia, or even generally in the global South, those people are seen as privileged, even though it is not written on their forehead. But it is assumed that for you to be white, you have a kind of like a birthright to be treated with respect, you know. And that was mixed up along the line when, about the same time when Columbus and Portugal explorer went sailing around that 1400. Columbus discovered South America, and then the Portuguese discovered Congo, so to say. And what was interesting when you compare and contrast these two history is that the Columbus was sponsored by the Christendom, not Christianity, Christendom. By the time when the Jews and blacks were kicked out of Spain in the Iberian Peninsula, Isabella and her husband, I can't remember her name now, Queen Elizabeth Isabella, put out an edict to sponsor Columbus' exploration to discover the India, which Columbus mistaken for the Americas, was that anyone that is not Christian doesn't have a soul and is not qualified to be a human, right? That was the first objectification of non-white person. And if you then go across the Atlantic down to East Africa and Congo, when the Portuguese come in contact with the Congo Kingdom, or Congo, and they were honored, respected, and everything seems to be jolly good, until when that goes on to the extent that the Portuguese and the Congolese reach an agreement of brotherhood or fraternity in terms of like humanity in question, and they had to be that we give us what you have, your best men to come and teach us what we have, what you know, and we'll give you our best men to teach you what we know. And that was the basis of the arrangement. And until the Portuguese start going up into Upper Congo, down the Great Lake region, and start finding other community that is under the Congo Kingdom, perhaps not happy with the arrangement with the Congo Kingdom. And this is true in most of the African kingdoms that existed. There's something they call to pay tribute to a king, and it most often start by the way where the king, excuse me, the king has, or the person who becomes the king, gives their children. Each of these children go out to go and found other kingdoms, right? And by founding other kingdoms, they become something the Yoruba calls, or the Ijebu calls, Bale. Bale is somebody who owns the land, like a feudal system. So they are small king. They are king in their own right, but they are small king. Like Edo, for instance, and the Bini people were part of the Yorubas that went to fund their own kingdom. But they pay tribute to the main source of where they draw their the umbilical origin of their ancestors, which is Ife, for instance. So this is how African culture is. Along the line, when they become strong and then they want to feel more powerful, they send their warlords to go and demand that the other kingdom pay tribute to their king. And if they refuse, they either go to war, or they surrender and make a pact and say, okay, yes, we're gonna pay tribute to you, and the king in the bigger city or in the bigger kingdom will protect you. In some cases, what happened is that if the other kingdom refused, the conquering kingdom would take the able men or their warlord as a way of breaking the breaking the dignity of the community by taking the king as slave. And it depends on how reluctant the person wills to give up. In some cases where the warlord that is full of ego and respect and do not want to accept the other kingdom will be put in a dungeon. And when there is the willingness to accept the order, I mean order like ORDER, the order of the kingdom, then it is very likely that that person becomes part of the member of the community. That person cannot run away, because if that person runs away back to his kingdom where he comes from or where she comes from, it is very likely that they will go back to that kingdom and destroy that kingdom, or then the woman and the children will suffer. So in that, on the other hand, if the person refuses to agrees to stay, he will become, he's not a slave. It's not a slave. He's a full functioning member of the community. He might be able to rise up to become somebody in the community through his communalism contribution, not financially, not economically. Say for instance, if there is if the person is able to, like, is good in the act of war or the act of protection, the person is very likely to become part of the work, the general class, right? And when you be part of the general class, your status has moved up the ladder. You are not just an ordinary person anymore. Or if you are a good fisherman, or you do something extraordinarily, or you are a farmer that introduced a new kind of produce, that it becomes very important into the lifestyle of the people. Or say for instance, if there are diseases that or kind of what do you call it, pandemic, that the community has never seen before, and maybe the person who is put under that that lives as an ordinary person knows the cure from his own kingdom where he comes from, and use that kingdom and use that knowledge to help resolve the pandemic. That person can even go as far as becoming a king. Or if he says the life of the king, for instance, the king, the mobility is very flexible and fluid as well. Even the person put in the dungeon will literally be freed or somehow be integrated part of the community. So the idea that African people sold their people into other community into slavery is kind of, it's not even kind of, it's totally wrong, right? So back to the Portuguese. The Portuguese realized there were some people on top of the lower upper lake region in the Congo, the Great Lake region rather, and they were unhappy. And the Portuguese was trying to explore the hinterland of Africa. So they have these people who are paying tribute to the bigger kingdom, and then explore that divide to say, okay, we want to go further, right? And then if you allow us to go further, we will give you a contribution of what you, and then you become powerful, and then you can depose the other kingdom, the order. So in a way, they give guns to these lower kingdoms, or these lower how do I say, these people they find along the Great Lake region. And that was what began slavery, chattel slavery as we know it. And it didn't just begin, because you have to remember that the deal they made with the Congolese people was, or the Congo people, was that give us your best men. Those best men were already in Congo by then. The Portuguese came back with Christianity, and the Africans were giving them how to make iron, how to process all these things, and all those kind of guild-like skill that you get from like apprenticeship, like how to make iron, how to make steel, how to make what they call copper, and all those things, was very useful to the Portuguese at that point in time. But then you have to remember that this was a very hard labor thing to do. and then it resulted into using these people as a to slave away their labor in making all these things that were becoming very useful to the Portuguese kingdom. So they realized they need more of these black people that they can easily be put under duress and you can make them to work. And the idea that the Africans are subservient came from the contact they had with the Congolese, because the Congolese welcomed them because it is an African. I can say this in generalization that the Africans generally appreciate the traveler because they imagine the way you see the world is different from the way we see the world. And there's a common saying in Yoruba that people are like water, omilenyo. Means that you don't know where you're going to find yourself in future. And if you do good for someone in this local area who is traveling, it is very likely that your descendant or you yourself might travel somewhere and you might need help. And it is very likely that the good you do will come with you. That I don't want to go into the spirituality aspect of it, but that's the understanding that most Africans have. That when you see, in fact, it's so nice. It's so interesting that when which I've seen myself with my parents, when the friend comes from the bigger city in Ibadan, or I remember my dad's friend who was trying to get a contract there, and my dad basically will make us sleep on the floor and give our bed to his friend, who he always see once in a while, And sometimes when our neighbor travels, you go to our neighbors and say, "Can I have your key to your place so that my friend can sleep?" It is some culture even go as far as a stranger. When it comes to a community, the king gives his best wife to the stranger for the night. If that the ethics of that is debatable, but all I'm saying is the emphasis put on travelers is huge in African culture. Because if you imagine, just like imagine your children too traveling, because Africans have always been a traveler. We can trace our origin back the Jebu, for instance, trace their origin back to around 800 AD in northeast of Sudan, and they knew why they find themselves in Nigeria today. It is well taught in our oral history, but it doesn't, for some reason, filter into the Western education we're taught at school. And this is the dichotomy I don't really understand. And this is where I am. And as a result, the understanding of the way that you see an African person become reduced to something that have economic value. That has not changed up till date. The slavery economy of how the West see the Africans have not changed up till today. And I can see that in the upcoming election. Now, the whole issue about immigrants and the immigration has always been talked about something disadvantage to the British people, and therefore they have to make sure that they reduce the amount of people that comes into their country. This is laughable and very, very dehumanizing at the same time. Non-EU international student. Well, I'm going to be giving you some statistic. I don't like using statistic because the way people use statistic varies, right? So bear with me. I have to stare into the screen because I cannot see very well. Out of the so-called international students that come into the UK, right? You have about 435,235,000. No, sorry, 435,235. Goodness, how do I say that? Right? Figure that is like the whole total number of non-international students in general, and 70% of them comes from outside the EU. 75. I repeat that again. 70% of these statistics come outside the EU. So what you're saying that what I'm trying to say here is that it is wrong to generalize students as just international students, as if they come from somewhere like from France or some America or something like that. 75% of those population that you see as international students are non-EU international students. And when you put that over the map of the world, right, this 70% happens to be from the global south. The same global south that was colonized I think by now you will start getting the point of what I'm trying to make. There's a direct correlation between global south and the colonization, and now the policy that is playing out in this present time, that international students, I mean immigration, are kind of bad for the economy, or they are here to take our job, or they've turned our NHS into international health service. That, I don't pay tax to do this, to do that. But meanwhile, you are milking non-EU international students through their fee. They are not making your welfare system. You are milking them, right? And we need to get this part straight. And then I'll give you. You might be thinking, okay, yeah, well, 70%, whatever. Well, what does that mean? Okay, I'll give you another example. 4.9 billion are spent by non-EU international students off campus. This is not their school fees now. Excuse me. This is not their school fees. This is the additional money they spend when they go out for, like, to the cinema, to the pub, to buy food in Tesco, Asda, what you name it. Buy things for everyday life, right? And these are the services that it kind of trickle down into the economy. I will do another video where I will talk about regions in the UK where the amount of fee, off-campus expenditure that's non-EU international students give back into the economy can be traced back into the number of jobs, number of incomes in a household, right? I have all the statistics, and I'm not going to throw statistics at you. I'm going to relate it to you in how it improves your own life, right? So I've given you the money they spend outside the university or the colleges where they're studying. Another video is, another statistic is, okay, in the expenditure of international student on fee is 4.4 billion, right? That's international student in general. Guess what? Out of the 4.4 billion, 3.8 billion is from non-EU international students, paid directly into universities as school fees, right? The 4.9 billion I was talking about, right, was the total of international students. But 3.4 billion was for non-EU international students spent out of the university. So I made a quick correction on that, right? And when you then look at the NHS, the output generated in terms of how you contributed into the state institutions. Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to recap. My brain is a little bit slow, so I'm trying to be able to catch up with what I'm saying. So basically, the jobs generated by non-EU international students between 2011 and 2012 was 700,557. You can understand that. That is 700,000. 700,000. How is then a non-EU international student is milking your system? How is that possible? If they are making your system right, they shouldn't be creating any job. They shouldn't even be contributing, having a trickle-down economy back to your local businesses. So we're not having an honest conversation about immigrant or migrant in this country when it comes to UK election. And I am not. People say, okay, you've voted for Jeremy Corbyn. Well, I'm not voting for any one of them either. Whether it is Caroline Lucas or Jeremy Corbyn or even the fearful most of the one I fear most of them most is Theresa May. And this is an apathy because a travesty rather, because you are supposed to vote someone out of the office because they're doing terrible and bringing somebody else that is good. But meanwhile, the other alternative is not even good either. It's about white superiority complex about, oh, we need to close our border. No, we need to do this, do that. And this is where I didn't even participate in the EU Brexit election, because Jeremy Corbyn, who used to be anti-EU, suddenly becomes neutral and muted, and he could not even make his own claim. I did think that the elected do have a point, but they refuse to reach out to both the EU citizen who are working in the UK, and as well as the UK citizen themselves who have been characterized as being the one who have been victimized by migrants coming to take their job. But the reality is, the only person who benefited from this argument is the bosses. Imagine you have somebody from EU who is a carpenter or who is a building stuff, and he doesn't speak English, and he comes into the economy. For him to be able to survive his family, at that point in time, he needs to sell himself or accept short. That's the fact. To be able to fit into the wage labor market, right? Because if you cannot speak English and you want to sell your labor, you're already going into the market that is saturated. Suddenly, for you to be able to become a participant or compete, or you sell yourself short. So, as you are selling yourself short, you're already taking away a customer from a builder who is a British citizen, who prices is already above the minimum wage or on the minimum wage, right? So that person is one customer to somebody who has kind of sold him or herself short. The point then happens is that two workers, two laborers are losing out, right? And if you multiply that, what you have is a drainage of work going to the stalled migrant who themselves are not in any aspect of it because they're already selling themselves short to be able to compete in the market. And who benefit from all this whole thing? The bosses, right? Because you have to understand that production is not completed without labor, and labor is the most expensive thing in the production process. If you don't have labor, in fact, when you look at a company balance sheet, the amount of money that goes to labor paying human asset is huge. So if the bosses see any opportunity of milking the labor market, they will jump at it. In fact, they will not even complain because it's to their own benefit. This is what I'm talking about how labor what they call them, Labour Party. That's what it sounds weird, you know. Labour Party and then Jeremy Corbyn and the Exit failed to do. Coming back to non-EU international students, our voices have been neglected. We've been seen as what's the cash crop, because the cash crop sometimes do have rights, right? But we as non-EU, we don't have any rights. We are like orange juice that you can orange that you can squeeze the juice, and when you tire of it, and just throw it out. We have no human right at all. Right. And this is saddening. This is the travesty. This is happening, but everybody is caught up with their own cutting their own corner and getting hyped up about this euphoric election mood where everything seems to be either you or them, and humanity is out of the window. You see what I'm saying, right? And to have to this I'm talking about, right? UK international market, the international student market is worth 10 billion in 2011-2012, and it is estimated that when you tap it completely with the English speaking English courses, language courses, and all those things, it's worth about 40 billion. And yet we're treated as if only what the rest of the only international students. What about the country they come from? They don't need anything at all. Like for example, to as well as David Cameron going to India. After they deported lots of Indian students. They told them, "Oh, we just need your student." And even the best student that comes into this country, you're not given any right at all. You have to pay some charges. It sounds because the way it sounds so. You get such. Oh God, I can say some charges. Yes, something like that. You know, just some charges. you already made when you're applying for the visa in the first place. Do you know the amount of money you have to pay to apply for a visa? I guess why people why Britain doesn't pay any money for so this EU referendum is about, oh my God, this one country you downtrodden on medical conditions, even those who have severe medical conditions are not being given access. In fact, they have to pay for secondary services. Come on, people. So from this election, it's not. I'm not proud about the debate. I tried to reach the government. I wrote to his office. They told me to speak to your local MP. I wrote to my local MP, who happened to be, conservative. He says, "Oh, we're trying to non-EU international. They should get into non-EU international students affairs, particularly asking non-EU international students to come and give evidence, not the people you select, or people who actually understand the argument, who have experienced the pain of being a non-EU international student in this country, and they've been treated so racially unfairly. And if that doesn't happen, nothing is going to happen. No, in fact, the loss of non-EU international students is just carry on, whatever. And I'm not making this as kind of for help. Please help me. I'm dying and this and that. I'm going blind or whatever. I'm not begging you, the UK government. I'm not begging you, the UK government, because I know you have the you claim colonialism is gone over long and slavery and everything is gone. Get to work. I'm not getting over it, because I pay my due when I came to this country, and when I was able to work, I pay my due. In fact, you're the one that allowing me to work right now, and you're asking why are so many people hungry? Go and look at your own statistics. Ask the government for statistics. So then international migrant health tourism. Just jump on the plane and say, okay, go to UK to get health services because it's free. They came here deliberately to learn to apply themselves to be able to work. That is a crime. That's a whole different conversation. But the fact that if everybody knows that anybody can break it at any point in time, but the most important thing of all, they did not come to the UK deliberately to come and make your system. So don't give me an excuse that UK is a so-called the cradle of freedom, Magna Carta, and all those bullshit. Sorry, I'm really upset. And many non-international students, you don't even an idea. In Sussex, between 2010 and 2015, there are 2 suicides. And those are the one I know of, because both of those students between 2007 and 2010, I was in my undergraduate. My classmate who is from Africa committed suicide about the same time we submitted our dissertation and we were waiting for our graduation. In 2015, when I went back for my MA, this time EU student committed suicide. And when you look at the way which support is being drummed up, given to non-EU international students, actually when you break it down, deconstruct it, there is no support at all. There's no support. And now I'm learning that there are other suicide cases, in fact, higher than Sussex, in many universities around the UK of non-EU international students. Because you have to remember that the school fees that we pay is like twice your school fees. Before you start paying 9,000, when you were paying 1,000, we were paying already 9,000. When you were paying 1,500, we were paying 9,000. That is the minimum. If you are doing EU, if you are doing medicine, you're paying about 25,000. And when you increase to 3,000, we were still paying the same amount we were paying. And by the time you increase your school fees, our shift forward. And then you cannot imagine the pressure you have when your parents invest in you to come and acquire knowledge here, and you're being treated a piece of shit as if you don't have any value. And then you're trying to tell me that UK is the best country in the world, it's the most multicultural country in the world. They have instituted all this kind of racial equality, blah blah blah. It's all bullshit. What it's been over 50, 60 years we've been talking about racial equality and diversity. What have they turned out to be? Look at the number of professors in the UK. There is 18,000. Only 85 are black. I mean, are black, and 17 among them are female, black female. And you're telling me about equality and diversity? Push it. I'm really hungry. Just anyway. Thank you for listening. Bye.